Today we're going to be talking about fintech. But just to sort of start us off with putting us in a frame of mind for fintech, and in fact a frame of mind for looking at the entire world. Donkeys. Donkeys. What is Bulgarian for donkey? Gavik? Magare. Magare. So, donkeys. So, in behavioral science, we are taught that the way that you get donkeys to do things is the carrot and the stick. And when we often look at how human beings behave, we think about how do you motivate individuals, the threat of punishment, the promise of a reward. It turns out that to get donkeys to do things, there's something dramatically more powerful than carrots and sticks, and that is other donkeys. I live in Berlin, and in Berlin there's a farm with wild horses and donkeys. So imagine there's a field with 10 donkeys way over in the field. You're throwing carrots out. It turns out that the donkeys don't speak German or English, and they can't see very well. So they have no idea what's happening. 3 donkeys notice a contrast. However, only 1 donkey is curious enough to do something about it, and the first donkey goes off. The next 4 donkeys think the donkey equivalent of, what the hell do you think you're doing? I don't know, I'm going to go there too. Typically because that first donkey is always the first donkey to find interesting stuff. The next 4 donkeys think, oh my God, half the donkeys have gone there. We should go there too. And there's 1 donkey finally chewing away by herself. She looks up, I'm alone. Oh, they're over there, I should go there too. Why do the donkeys do things? They do things because they're following other donkeys. Humans are exactly the same. Now, I was struggling to find a 2013-2014 startup event that included the word fintech. Now, I guess in the last 12 months, there's been $13 billion of investment going into fintech. So clearly, there's a lot of donkeys. But the donkeys are not just following the investment, but they're also actually using these things as systems. So it's my pleasure to be your moderator here for this track. Hopefully, we will have time for 1 or 2 questions at the end, so sort of keep that in mind. And with that, I'd like to introduce our very first speaker. Our first speaker is Brian, and he's going to be talking to us about student finance. So let's all welcome Brian. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. Thank you. Thanks, guys. Very good. And thanks, Mark. I appreciate the donkey comparison. I'm not often compared to a donkey, so that's good. I'm Brian. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Future Finance. We're Europe's first private student loan company. And because I always ask, has anybody heard of us? Anybody? Anybody? Yeah, the guy I just talked to before has heard of us. Okay, that's okay. That's okay. Now you've all heard of us, okay, and go tell your friends. Today we're active in the UK and in Germany. I'll get into a little bit about us, but about me, I'm American, as you can probably tell. I grew up in Chicago. I started my first company in my dorm room making websites. I still write code, and came into the finance business early in my career, and I've been doing it ever since. I've been lending mortgages, student lending, for my entire career. And I have a special passion for education finance, and I imagine we have most people here local. Like, where's everybody from? Most people Bulgarian? I know the conference is people from all over Europe. Who's European? Who's Bulgarian? Okay. Okay, so mostly Bulgarians. Okay, so here I was talking to someone last night. So I know university education here is still really cheap, right? Couple hundred lev, not very expensive, if that even. What's happening elsewhere in Europe is that education is getting much more expensive. We started the company on a very simple mission. We believe that no student should be denied a productive education merely for financial reasons. That money shouldn't get in the way between a great student and a great education. Unfortunately, it happens an increasing amount here, particularly in the places where we're active, it's UK and Germany. Whether it's an undergraduate who's struggling to make ends meet to cover the cost of food and rent, maybe she's the first in her family to get an undergraduate education, or someone in their mid-20s who wants to go back and get a master's degree, but is struggling to come up with the costs that can be high. We think that's wrong. Money gets in the way all the time now, and we started the company to fix it. Oh, the clicker. Sorry. Okay, so just a little bit more about us. I don't know if you guys can see this. We're Europe's first, fastest growing, largest, and only private student lender at this point, so no donkeys behind us yet, Mark, that we know of. We've had in our first year of operation, we had about 37,000 students, most all of them in the UK, apply for loans with us. So like in this room, no one's ever heard of us. In the UK, people are starting to hear about us. We think about 6 or 7% of students have heard of us. 37,000 students is nearly 2% of all students in the country of the UK. So when people hear about us, they're very interested in what we do, and many times they're applying to us for loans to help them pay for those costs. We've lent out a total of £25 million so far, so pretty good. We've got a ways to go, but it's a good start. And most importantly, this is the point of my talk today, there are 60 billion pounds. And for you Bulgarian people in places where education is still relatively free, this is often a startling number. 60 billion pounds are spent on education every year in the UK and in Germany that is not covered by the government. So people, think about that. People in those countries come up with 60 billion pounds every year to cover the cost of higher education. That's postgraduate and undergraduate work. It's a really big number. So, and that's a new thing, that's a change, which is why it made sense for us to come in and start what we started. Primarily, the primary change is what we call the desocialization of education. So across Europe, and I'll bet you if I come back to Webit in 5 years and talk about this again, raise the hand here, you know, how much does education cost in Bulgaria? Things are starting to tick up because this is something that we see happening everywhere. Generally what's happening is in our simple little picture here, this is supposed to be the government, the building thing, right? Government used to pay for education here. Across Europe, it was government would pay for everything. If they're charging you for your undergraduate education here a couple hundred lev a year, the government is paying for it. It costs a lot more than that to provide a higher education. You got to pay teacher salaries, building maintenance, electricity, all the food, the housing, all that stuff, way more expensive than a couple hundred lev. And what's happening is, the UK is the most dramatic example, is they're pushing that cost from the government, is basically putting it onto the consumer, which in this case is the student. So they're moving to a pay-for-what-you-get model. Make sense? You might not like it, right? It's nice when things are free, but this is what's happening. So in the UK, 15 years ago, UK university was free, zero for undergraduate, zero. Mark, did you go to university in the UK? Where'd you study? Cass, great. We work with Cass. Great. City University, right? So City University, where Mark went, used to be free. Was it free when you went? Yeah, okay, so free. 15 years ago, they made it £1,000 a year. It's a 3-year education. £1,000 a year. Then they made it £3,000 a year. Now it's £9,000 a year for your undergraduate education. Full cycle, tuition only. These guys were asking me. No rent, no housing, no food, no books, no computers. £27,000 for a 3-year education. Which is actually kind of what it costs. That's sort of what it costs. That's like the appropriate all-in for, hold on, the piano guy's got a phone call. Everything okay? Okay, great. Everything's fine. So so £27,000 is tuition full cycle. Big number. £27,000 sterling. Big number. And then on top of that, between food, rent, clothes, housing, travel, computers, whatever else it costs to be a student, especially in expensive places like London, we think there's another £12,000. In total, for a 3-year undergraduate education, students are going to spend £60,000 to get that education in the UK today. And this is new. Again, guys, this is new. This hasn't been going forever. I come from America. It's been expensive there for a long time. Here, this is new. And again, I'd argue it's coming across Europe. That's why we're here. We're here because we see it as a great business opportunity and all that sort of stuff. But remember the mission. We think what happens when costs go up is people get left behind. Rich people can afford to go, and other people can't. And that's not right. As the costs change, as the government pushes more of this, largely because of austerity, the government pushes more of this down to students, there's got to be some way for people to fill the gaps. And what happens is, you probably can't see this, we do social listening on this, right? So some of these things, how is anyone supposed to live off student finance loan, especially after accommodation costs? Why do universities make accommodation prices so much higher than student loans? Makes no sense. If you go on Twitter and look in the UK and increasingly in Germany at what students are saying, they're saying it's more expensive than I can afford. I can't come up with the money. There's no place to get the money. Which means one of two things can happen. One, they can work too many part-time jobs, not study enough, don't eat very well. We have people who, or they can turn to other bad choices to try to come up with the money. And a little bit about that. So these are UK numbers here. So in the UK, about 32% of students use credit cards to cover the cost of their education. They borrow about £1 billion every year from credit cards, students. And credit cards, 40% APRs, and it's a short payback time. It's not a great financial product. It's not good for students. A little bit crazier, 24% of students gamble to cover the cost of education. Which is, they're trying to cover the cost of education. If they were actually able to make money gambling, they should stop being students. They should move to Las Vegas. 13% of students take part in clinical drug trials. They test the medicines for the drug companies to make money. And most troubling to me, 25% of students say they use payday loans, 1,000% APR, immediate payback. This gets people into a lot of trouble. What's interesting about students from our perspective, why this makes a lot of sense to us, is students are, if you're a bank, and this is the fintech point, right? We're doing something that a bank should be doing, but they're not able to figure this out for one particular reason. Banks look backwards. Banks look at where you've been. They look at how you paid back your last loan. They look at how much you earned last year. Students have bad numbers in that regard. They earn no money. They're students. Maybe they earn a little, but they earn generally no money, and they have lots of expenses. So if you're a bank and you look at this, you say, do you want customers that have lots of expenses and who make no money? It's not a great customer, right? In normal banking. But what's different about students, and you all know this, probably I bet a lot of people in here have university degrees, when you get that degree, you're on a great track. In the UK, people with university degrees are an elite group. It's like a top quartile of the population. I don't know the numbers for Bulgaria, but I'll bet it's an even smaller group that have a higher education. The earning power that comes along with that is substantial. So if you're able to get through the university period, you can expect substantial uplift in earnings going forward. And that's really, for us, that's what we do. So we are a fintech business. We built this on a couple of things. First of all, we got lots of data. Like every fintech business, we have lots and lots of data. Our data is specific around the student experience. So we have data per university and then per course in that university. We know what someone's going to earn when they graduate, statistically speaking. And then when we underwrite a customer, we look at that potential earning number instead of what they're earning now. So again, different than what a bank does, we look forward, not back, at a student's potential to try to decide if they can be a good customer for us. We have great technology. We built everything from the ground up. We hired our first employee in June of 2014, and since that, we built full stack, vertically integrated origination, underwriting, servicing, internal CRM, external customer-facing website, all from scratch, and it's pretty awesome stuff. Very good stuff. We also raised a ton of money. If you Google us, you'll see we just closed a big Series B. In total, we've raised about 45 million euros in equity to fund this business, plus an additional 150 million sterling for lending money. So to be a lender, you need money. We've raised a lot of money. And lastly, this is obvious for anybody who's done anything entrepreneurial, we've poured a lot of our hard work into this thing to get to where we are. And I've got a great team behind me. We've got 55 people working in 3 different countries to make this thing real. And what it ends up with is we've developed a solution. We've developed great loans for students. We take that problem of the rising costs and nobody there to help cover that cost and have introduced what we think is a pretty decent option for the students. And it all really comes back to our core vision. Again, and I'll close with this because I know I'm just about out of time. We believe, we started this company because we think everybody deserves a great education, and money should not get in the way. So that's it. Hopefully that makes sense. Good?
One question?
Yeah, sure. I'd love to take a question. Anybody have any questions? We got time for one, it looks like.
Do you give loans only in the UK and Germany, or is it?
Yes. So today we give loans only in the UK and Germany. Because we're a lender, we have to get licenses from the central bank or whomever. We do have a lot of Bulgarian customers, I looked this up, who come from Bulgaria to the UK or to Germany. We're planning on launching in Ireland and then a few other countries perhaps this year as well. Yeah.
Brilliant.
I'm from Poland, but I think I'm sure it's also the case in Scotland and some other countries that the government helps, so subsidizes the loans. So how do you cope with this? I mean, you're renting, as far as I understand, you're lending on the commercial level, so you
Yes.
cannot give 0%.
No, we don't. They have to pay the loans back, and we don't charge 0%. So briefly, governments in the UK and Germany do make some loans, but it's like a small portion. So if the government loan isn't enough, we come after that.
Okay, so one more question.
It's a follow-up, Mark. It's okay. Yeah. It's okay.
How is it with repaying? Because banks are cross-checking besides, can you just assume that he's a student, he will pay back or she will pay back?
Yeah, we have, I can go into more detail later, but generally we design the whole thing. Remember the mission, right? We're here for the students, right? So we design the whole thing to be really student-friendly. I was telling these guys beforehand, if you graduate and you have a hard time finding a job, you call us up, you can take a 3-month break, no questions asked, for example. So we try to put like a lot of student-friendly features in, recognizing that our customers are young people and they're going to be up here, but right now they're kind of trying to make their way. So okay, that's it, guys. Thanks a lot. Really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.